Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a simple but really powerful framework for managing your money like the wealthiest people in the world. A system that's been used for decades to build huge fortunes, sometimes from nothing at all.
Okay, so to manage money like the rich, first we kind of need to know who these people actually are. And this chart, well, it lays it all out. A massive 75% are entrepreneurs, and another 15% are investors. You see the common thread? They own things. Now look really close. What's missing? Yep. The slice for employees who only earn a salary is at 0. That is a huge, huge clue. And that brings us right to the core secret, and it's captured perfectly in this quote. It is all about ownership. Simple as that. Entrepreneurs own businesses, investors own assets. Heck, even top entertainers own their brand or a super rare skill. This is the fundamental mindset shift we're digging into today. The goal is to stop just earning and to start owning. So, how do you actually start owning things, no matter what you make right now? Well, you follow a simple blueprint, the 25, 15, 50, 10 rule. And let me be clear, this has nothing to do with how much you make. It's all about how you manage what you've got. First step, 25% of your income is for growth. This is the magic part. This is the money that starts working for you, not the other way around. And we're not talking about some vague personal growth stuff here. We are talking about using this money to buy actual assets. Things that increase in value and ideally put more cash right back in your pocket. Now, the biggest excuse people have? I just don't have enough to start. But as you're about to see, waiting is the most expensive mistake you can possibly make. Let's look at the story of two investors, Billy and Phil. Billy starts young, at age 20, investing just $200 a month. Phil waits a whole decade, then starts investing more, $300 a month, trying to catch up. Okay, let's hit the fast forward button to age 60. Phil, who started later but put in more cash overall, $108,000 in total, ends up with a pretty respectable $678,000. Hey, not bad, right? But here's the mind-blowing part. Billy, who invested $12,000 less than Phil over his lifetime, ends up with over $1.2 million. That's nearly double what Phil has. And the only difference? He started 10 years earlier. That is the incredible, unstoppable power of compound growth. So how do you actually get started? It's a really simple 3-step process. First, you pick your assets. A great place for most people to start is with low-risk index funds. It's just an easy way to own a tiny piece of lots of successful companies. Second, you set up the right kind of accounts, like a Roth IRA, which are basically designed to let your money grow without you getting hit with a giant tax bill later. And third, you automate it. You set it up once so the money invests automatically every payday. And then you forget about it. All right, next up is the 15% for stability. Think of this as your financial shock absorber. It's the money that keeps you in the game, protecting all those growth investments when life inevitably throws you a curveball. The person who came up with this system learned this lesson the hard way. At 18, he got a loan for a car so he could get to work. 3 months later, the engine blew up. With no savings, he had to borrow even more money, just piling on debt and stress. That single event set his finances back a full year, a total disaster that a stability fund would have covered no problem. And that story just perfectly illustrates the 3 rules for your stability fund. 1, it's got to be easy to access, like within 24 hours. 2, it must have 0 risk, which means this money is never in the stock market. And 3, it should still be earning a little something in a high-yield savings account so it can at least try to fight off inflation while it's just sitting there. Now for the biggest slice of the pie, 50% for essentials. This is your survival money, the stuff you actually need to live, not the stuff that just feeds your ego. The key here is to keep this category capped so you can avoid that dangerous trap of lifestyle creep. That thing where the more you make, the more you spend. It's honestly shocking how many people with 6-figure salaries are still living paycheck to paycheck. And why? Because they're focused on looking rich, not actually being rich. The author tells a perfect story about a friend who, on the surface, looked super successful. Designer shirt, fancy watch. But the reality? That friend had less than $50 to his name and overdue bills. All while the author quietly had over $1,000 working for him in investments. It's the perfect reminder. True wealth is what you don't see. So how do you fight that urge to spend? You don't. You don't rely on willpower. That's a battle you will lose eventually. Instead, you build a system. And that system is just asking a series of simple questions before you buy. The first one is right here. Is this an impulse purchase? If the answer is yes, or even maybe, the rule is simple. Wait 7 days. 9 times out of 10, the urge will have totally vanished by then.
Okay, so you waited 7 days and you still want it. Now you ask the second question. Are you buying this for the brand or for the value? There is a huge difference. Truly wealthy people rarely throw money away on a logo. They focus on the actual value something provides, often thinking about the cost per use instead of just the price tag. And finally, if it passes the value test, you hit it with one last critical question. Will this purchase genuinely improve my life in a meaningful way? This is the ultimate filter. It forces you to be intentional. It separates the things that will actually make you happier or more productive from the things you're just buying to impress other people.
And now for the final and maybe the most important 10%. This is your guilt-free reward money, the fun money that keeps you sane. This isn't an excuse to be reckless, it's a deliberate strategy, because a plan with zero room for joy is really just a punishment, and punishments are not sustainable. This 10% is what makes the entire system something you can actually stick with for the long haul.
A great way to put this into practice is with something called a joy jar. It's super simple. You open a separate bank account and you automatically transfer that 10% into it every payday. That's it. Now you have a dedicated fun fund. When the money is in there, you can spend it completely guilt-free on whatever you want without ever touching your growth or stability money. But here's a pro tip on how to spend that joy money for maximum happiness. Focus on what lasts. Instead of disposable stuff that gives you a quick hit of dopamine, spend it on things that create lasting value. We're talking about memories from vacations, skills from a new hobby, and stronger connections from shared experiences or thoughtful gifts for people you care about. So, let's put it all together. This isn't some complicated system, it's a simple, powerful blueprint for taking control of your financial life. So here it is, the entire 25, 15, 50, 10 framework at a glance. You've got 25% for growth, buying assets that work for you, 15% for stability, your financial safety net, 50% for essentials, covering your needs, not your ego, and that crucial 10% for rewards, so you can actually enjoy the journey. Ultimately, the core message is this. Building wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about the system you use to manage what you make. This approach is accessible to anyone at any income level. Which leaves us with just one final question for you to think about. What is one small change you can make, starting today, to begin owning your financial future?